I would like to welcome all of you to our video lecture, and this will be our last video lecture for this semester. And the topic that we will be dealing with is on economic planning. Now, let us see what is economic planning. Professor Dickinson has defined economic planning as under: economic planning is the making of major economic decisions by a determinate authority on the basis of a comprehensive survey of the economy as whole. Such decisions include what and how much to produce, how, when, and where it is to be produced, and to whom it is to be allocated. Another definition is given by Dr. Dalton. The definition is as follows: economic planning in the widest sense is a deliberate direction by persons in charge of large resources of economic activity towards chosen ends. Through this definition that has been given here, we see that planning, that is economic planning, is directed towards a certain goal, certain objective, all right? It involves decision making based on comprehensive research done on a particular economy. Here, we need to consider the questions such as what, how, when, and where while making major decisions. Let's look at the need for economic planning, that is, importance of economic planning. The first one is equitable distribution. There is a glaring inequality of wealth, income, opportunities, and economic power in many states or nations. Here, planning becomes necessary for equitable distribution of economic income or such services provided by the state. And we see a wide gap between the haves and the have-nots, that is, the poor and the rich, which can lead to social injustice. Therefore, planning is advocated for reducing inequalities of income, wealth, and opportunities. The next one is adjusting to major economic changes. Without the aid of planning, no country can cope with major economic changes. Such change can refer to industrial revolution, depression in the economy, inflation or deflation, all right? Here, economic planning is very much necessary in order to keep up or adjust with such changes. The next one is rapid industrialization. This is another important area of economic planning. This area assumes its importance in countries which have been left behind in the race of industrialization. For example, countries like India aims at rapid industrialization. Few countries can become prosperous by merely confining themselves to agriculture. The next is self-sufficiency in food and raw material. Planning is definitely necessary for achieving self-sufficiency in food and raw materials. In fact, self-sufficiency is the main base for planning in developed as well as underdeveloped nations. We have to understand here that unless the nation achieves self-sufficiency, it is impossible to lay down plans in other areas which needs attention. The next one is optimal resource utilization. Economic planning paved the way for optimal utilization of a country's resources. Through economic planning, the state can distinguish between essential activity and non-essential activity that needs to be performed throughout the year. For example, only the state can ban the production of unnecessary luxury items and direct the production process to more valuable goods, to the production of more valuable goods, which will benefit not only the rich people, but which will benefit the entire masses. The last one is redressing imbalances in the economy. Here, it is found that economic development in a country can suffer from certain imbalances. For example, an economy may be predominantly agricultural. For instance, our country India also suffers from this imbalance. And in order to provide stability in the economy, it becomes necessary to reduce these imbalances. And here, economic planning seeks to correct such imbalances. So these are the need for importance of economic planning. Now let us look at the need or objectives of planning in underdeveloped and developing countries. We have seen the importance of planning, economic planning as a whole, all right, that is which is for the developed countries as well as the underdeveloped and developing country. Now let us see why economic planning is particularly necessary for underdeveloped and developing countries. The first one is efficient utilization of resources. The most efficient function of economic planning is to ensure the best use of given resources within the country. And we know that in underdeveloped and developing country, maximum social benefits can only be achieved when the available resources are allocated and utilized in the most efficient manner. And this can be done by the government only through effective economic planning. The second one is greater opportunities. We know that the most common benefit that a democratic nation enjoy is the opportunities in the market. Therefore, it is the duty of the government to provide greater resources at the disposal of individuals, and the government also needs to reduce excessive consumption or the disposal of resources, concentration of resources in just few individuals. And this can only be ensured through efficient economic planning. The next is maximization of national income and raising living standard. The standard of living in underdeveloped and developing countries is very low compared to developed countries. Therefore, it is the responsibility of the government to maximize the national income and raise the standard of living among the people of the nation. And it can only be ensured when the government correctly addresses the economic needs of the country and take right measures, desired action through economic planning. The next is providing full employment. Why do we need economic planning? It is to provide full employment. And we know that unemployment is the biggest problem in underdeveloped and developing countries. Therefore, the government can redistribute labor and create more work opportunities for both private and public sector. And that is again possible only through thorough economic planning. The next is equitable distribution of income. We have already seen that in the last slide. There is shocking economic inequalities in underdeveloped and developing countries. Therefore, reduction of economic inequalities should be the main aim of underdeveloped and developing countries. And we know that it is not possible without economic planning. The next is public-oriented goals. When we talk about public-oriented goals, we are talking about a welfare state. The government needs to go towards constructing a welfare state for the people. For example, the government needs to look into and develop research and education, public goods and services, health, providing clean water, etc. The next is price stability. In underdeveloped and developing nations, there is low productive capacity, low savings and investment, and therefore the price starts rising very sharply. There is inflation. And in order to eliminate the adverse effects of price instability and business fluctuations, the government needs to come forward in creating a favorable economic condition for the nation. And this can only be done through proper economic planning. The next is provision of social services. We all know what is meant by social services. In underdeveloped and developing countries, the government needs to look into these services. For example, under this, we can talk about the developmental activities conducted in rural areas, such as schooling, health, clean water facilities, electricity, transportation facilities, etc. The last point under this topic is aid to victims of catastrophe. This simply means the granting of relief, the granting of assistance to victims of natural calamities such as flood, such as tsunamis, earthquakes, etc. And this aids to victims of catastrophe, this needs to be included in the economic planning. We have come to the end of this lecture. This will definitely be included in your exam, so kindly make proper notes on this topic, and if you have any doubts regarding this, please ask me. Thank you for your patient listening.